Let me. You should be able to hear that. Anyway, I'll be hanging out here, waiting for questions. Anybody who wants to ask about anything regarding the USMLE, regarding studying anything. I know it's 6 a.m. now. It's about 7 a.m. in Egypt. So most of people will be asleep by now. But anyway, anyone who's awake by now, that's fine. I can. I don't know if I can hear myself studying anything. Yeah, the sound is good. I can. That's good. I think my voice is clear. Yep. I'm gonna add this for the people who join. I'm gonna answer. Yep. What is that, man? Yeah, that's fine. I'll have something to I'll get something to study with. I'll be waiting here for anybody to ask a question. have a cardiology exam in 3 days, I think. 4 days. 3 days, yeah. It's final exam. I'm in 5th year. I can get some music going. I think I can get some music going. I'm having some coffee because I just woke up at 6 a.m. I should be studying right now, but I'm gonna finish the stream real quick. Really, guys, if you have any questions, any sort of questions, I'll be open to hear them. I'll be so happy to answer anything. معلمي بلال رأفت الجامد، انت ايه اللي صحاك الصبح كده؟ الدمبل كام كيلو؟ 15. منور يا اسطى والله. انت بتلعب ليج؟ مش هينفع الاودينس انا لسه عامل فيديو ليج، فمش هينفع الاودينس هيفشخ. بقول لك ايه، في لاج في الستريم ولا لا، ولا انت مشيت اصلا؟ في لاج وحش ولا رخم ولا ايه؟ انا مش عارف، انا بحرك اهو. قشطة. اه الشات تقريبا بيوصل متأخر اه. انت صاحي بدري ولا انت صاحي من يعني قاعد من امبارح، مطبق من امبارح؟ جامد جامد، ريسبكت. early bird يعني. في حاجة اسمها sleep chronotypes. sleep chronotypes دي لكل واحد بيبقى ليه تقريبا ميعاد بيبقى alert فيه والفوكس very sharp ومش عارف ايه، بتختلف من شخص للتاني، بتعتمد على الدي ان ايه يعني ماركرز ومش عارف ايه، يعني لكل واحد بيبقى ليه. كاليستينكس لا، خلاص جي جي. انا بلعب ويت ليفتنج بس، مش باين عليا. سعد اوي ان الشات بيوصل متاخر. انا نفسي اعرف انت بتقول ايه دلوقتي. خلاص مش في الشات يعني. انا هفضل قاعد هنا لحد لما حد يجي بقى. صوتي باين كويس ولا اي كلام؟ انا سمعته هنا في ال نقرس. هو النقرس ده اللي هو ايه؟ اه النقرس ده الجاوت. لا ملوش علاقه بالمانجا ده يا اسطى، ملوش علاقه بالمانجا. بس انا صحيح انت مش قلت لي هتجيب لي مانجا؟ انا عايز مانجا يا اسطى. يلا بينا، انا موافق. انا عندي كورس هديه للواد ده من 8، من 6 ل 8 وننزل بعد 8. اه كويس ان انت جيت. بص، آم، انسى حوار الملاحظات ده خالص، ماشي؟ انسى حوار ان انت تكتب ملاحظات وتكتب ورا بوردز اند بيوند. احسن حاجه تعملها لان انت تذاكر بوردز اند بيوند ان انت تسمع هو بيقول ايه، وتستخدم ان انت تستخدم الكاردز ان انت تذاكر. تمام؟ يعني انت دلوقتي دلوقتي في مثلا بتتفرج على فيديو هارت فيلير، حلو؟ ما تقعدش تكتب اللي هو بيقوله، انت ركز في الكلام اللي هو بيقوله، ركز في هو بيقول ايه. تمام؟ وحاول critically think about اللي هو بيقوله. انت فاهم؟ لو كنت شفت الفيديو بتاعي بتاع اسمه ايه ده، اللي هو الفاونديشنز، كنت بتكلم على الديكودينج، وازاي لما تقرا حاجه او تشوف فيديو او بتاع، ازاي تترجم الكلام اللي هو بيقوله وتحوله من complex medical language ل easy understandable language. مش عارف شفت الفيديو ده ولا لا؟ معلش هو الشات بيوصل متاخر شويه، انا مش عارف انت بتقول ايه. ف مفيش اسوأ من ان انت تكتب نوتس ورا اي حد خالص. النوتس ليها فايده واحده بس. النوتس فايدتها ان انت تحط كل المعلومات قدامك وتبدا تفكر فيها. يعني مثلا هو بيتكلم عن الهارت فيلير، الباثوفيزيولوجي اوف هارت فيلير مثلا، تمام؟ تبدا تحط كل حاجه عن الهارت فيلير جنب بعض كده، وتبص فيها بعين من بعيد، تبص فيها تحاول تفكر وتحاول تربط الحاجات ببعض. دي فايده النوتس. انما انت تقعد تكتب نوتس كده ولا هتراجعها ولا هتستفاد بيها اي حاجه. فاهم قصدي؟ يعني درافت بس، ان انت تستخدم النوتس كانك بتكتب حاجه، وبعد كده تمسك الورقه دي ترميها في الزباله. انت في سنه كام؟ حامد، انت في سنه كام؟ في ليتنسي جامد قوي، مش عارف ايه. 5 قديم زي انت قدي في السن. خدت بالك من اللي انا قلته ولا لا؟ لا لا، تطبع سلايدز ايه يا عم؟ بص، اللي انا بقوله لك ده من الاخر، انا خلصت بورز اند بيوند كله، وعايز اقول لك انت عارف انا عملت ايه؟ انا تقريبا السورس بتاعي في المذاكره كان بورز اند بيوند وشويه كيو بانكس كده. يعني انا كنت كان ايه الاستراتيجي بتاعي في ستيب 1؟ ان انا اقعد احل اسئله. مش هقعد احل اسئله كده وخلاص زي ما الناس بتعمل، انت فاهم؟ الاسئله ليها بيربس معين، الاسئله بتخليك فاهم انت ايه اللي هتتسال فيه وازاي هتتسال، وازاي تذاكر من الاخر. الكويشن بانكس بتفهمك ازاي تذاكر. فانا استخدمت خبرتي في حوالي، انا خلصت حوالي ربع مثلا، ربع يو وورلد، انت فاهم؟ وخلصت نص امبوس، تمام؟ وشويه ار اكس كده، وبقيت بذاكر من بورز اند بيوند. فانا فاهم كويس بورز اند بيوند بيبي يعني ازاي بتستخدمه في ستيب 1. بورز اند بيوند ريسورس رهيب 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 يعني. هو تقريبا ما فيش حاجه بيقولها ملهاش لازمه، انت فاهم؟ فزي ما قلت لك، انت وانت بتتفرج على الفيديو ركز قوي في اللي هو بيقوله. تمام؟ حاول تفهم وتترجم اللي هو بيقوله. انا عايز اوريك بيان عملي، انا عايز اوريك. بص، ادخل على الفيديو اللي فات اللي انا منزله، تمام؟ ونط على ايه، في حته how to approach a USMLE question، في حته كده في الاخر. شوف انا ازاي بترجم السؤال، ازاي بحل السؤال في يو وورلد. تمام؟ هتفهم انا قصدي ايه بقى، يعني بعد ما نخلص الستريم ده بقى بص عليه. وزي ما قلت لك النوتس فايدتها الوحيده ان انت تحط المعلومات قدامك كده. هو قال مثلا مش عارف تعال ناخد المثال، تعال ناخد مثال حي عشان تبقى فاهم كل حاجه. بيتكلم مثلا على الاتريال فيبريليشن، تمام. الاتريال فيبريليشن ليه population معين بيجي فيه، وليه معلومات معينه. يعني مش عارف بيجي في الناس الكبيره، بيجي بيتعالج بمش عارف unsynchronized ولا synchronized cardioversion، مش عارف، فيه حاجات كده. حلو. فانت عشان تلم الاتريال فيبريليشن في دماغك بتكتب كل الكلام ده في نوت، تمام، وتبدا تجمع الحاجات مع بعض. خلصت وراه سي في اس وحليت في امبوس، بس اخد مني وقت كتير لان بكتب وراه. طب وايه، وحاسس بايه بعد ما حليت يعني، بعد ما خلصت السي في اس حاسس بايه؟ حاسس ان انت فاهم كويس وفاكر المعلومات ولا لا؟ باي يا صاحبي. نوعا ما حاسسني فاكر، بس الموضوع كان مرهق عشان الكتابة، وكنت بحل حوالي من 25 ل 30 سؤال صح. بس study mode. study mode، تمام. أم... تمام، تمام. بس لا، انسى حوار الكتابة. يعني ايه بتكتب بتكتب وراه ازاي؟ ليه؟ قعدت حوالي 3 اسابيع، يا دوب 3 اسابيع في سي في اس. يا دوب طبعا، حلو حلو، مش وحش خالص. الكارديو كان كبير في بورزن بيون، بتاع مش عارف 11 ساعة ولا 8 ساعات، مش فاكر. الكارديو كبير، مش صغير. بص هفهمك حاجة يا حامد. انت عارف اكيد، انت اكيد عارف، انت من كفر الشيخ، عارف ال اسمه ايه ده، المثل اللي بيقول لك العلم في الراس مش في الكراس. عارف الموضوع ده صح؟ انت الهدف من ان انت بتكتب نوتس او بتكتب وراه، انت ايه هدفك؟ انت فاهم؟ انت يعني بتنقل، انت فاكر ان كده بتتعلم؟ لا، انت بتتعلم لما تفكر في الكلام اللي بيتقال، تفكر فعلا، تفكر في الكلام اللي بيتقال. فاهم؟ انت بتقرا دلوقتي اتريال فيبريليشن يعني ايه، اتريم يعني ايه، اتريم يعني ايه، الاتريم اكيد. فيبريليشن يعني اهتزاز، انت فاهم؟ طب ليه بيهتز؟ انت فاهم؟ عشان مش عارف في فوساي في البالمر فينز، انت فاهم، او فوساي في الرايت اتريم. فاهم قصدي؟ فان انت تقعد تكتب الكلام في الورقه ده، يعني ده غلط خالص، انت فاهم؟ وطبعا يعني انا مش بقلل من الطريقه بتاعتك، بس انا كنت انا جربت كل حاجه، انت فاهم؟ يعني انا جربت تقريبا كل الطرق، والطرق اللي نفعت معايا هي الطرق اللي خلت العلم في الراس، مش في الكراس. يعني زي ما قلت لك، فايده النوتس او ان انت تاخد نوتس او ملاحظات، فايدتها حاجه واحده بس، ان انت تحط الحاجات قدامك بحيث يبقى عندك بيج بيكتشر، تبقى شايف كده كل حاجه قدامك. انت بتقرا اتريال فيبريليشن، تقعد تترجم اتريوم يعني اهو، الاتريوم اهو، فيبريليشن يعني اهتزاز. ايه سبب الاتريال فيبريليشن؟ طب ليه بيحصل في الناس الكبيره مش في الناس الصغيره؟ تقعد بقى تفكر في كل حاجه، انت فاهم؟ بعد ما تفكر وتترجم كل الكلام ده، تبدا بقى تتخيله. فاهم؟ تبدا تتخيل واحد عنده اتريال فيبريليشن، تمام. الواحد ده تاخد الاول شكله من بره عامل ازاي. هو شخص كبير غالبا اولد 70 80 سنه، تمام، مش عارف ابتدى حته كده في الاثريوم تشتغل، تمام، دي اول خطوه. تبدا بقى ترتب الاحداث بتاعت الاثريال فيبريليشن، بحيث لو جالك سؤال في اي كويستشن بانك، امبوس، اوركس، اي حاجه، تبدا تعرف الراجل ده عنده اتريال فيبريليشن، ده جاب بالبيتيشنز، ده جاب ديسنيا، ده جاب مش عارف بايه، سويتنج، ومش مستريح، وعنده تاكيكارديا وبتاع، انت فاهم، وعنده سنه 80 سنه او 70 سنه، يبقى موست لايكلي اتريال فيبريليشن مثلا، فاهم قصدي؟ وتمسك بقى تعمل كده في كل حاجه. اي مرض يقابلك لازم تعمل فيه القصه دي، تفهمه كويس قوي وتفهم ابعاده، وتستخدم النوتس والملاحظات ان انت ترتب الابعاد، ترتبها كده. انا مش عارف انا بفيدك ولا لا، يا رب يا رب تكون بتستفاد دلوقتي، يا رب تكون فاهم قصدي، انت فاهم. باي ذا واي انا عامل فري جيف اواي، يعني هدرس للناس فور فري، يعني هعمل كده زي بروجرام، تمام، هعمل برنامج هعلمك ازاي تحل اسئله ومش عارف ايه وبتاع، وفور فري عشان بسبب ال1000 سبسكرايبر اللي عندي، يعني احتفالا بال1000 سبسكرايبر. فلو انت عايز تبقى تعمل الفيديو الجاي، اعمل ساين اب، اللي هو مش عارف، هحط لينك كده، اعمل ساين اب وهاخدك انت اول واحد، وهقول لك ازاي تذاكر وتعمل كل حاجه، تذاكر تذاكر بوردز اند بيوند، وازاي تحل اسئله، وازاي تابروتش السؤال، ازاي تقرب من السؤال، ازاي تقرا السؤال، كل حاجه. بص، انا زمان، انا في الاول كنت بستخدم انكي، ان انا بقعد اعمل الانكي فلاش كاردز بتوعي، تمام، لكن اكتشفت ان ده ويست اوف تايم، ده ضياع وقت ايه رهيب، يعني انا عمال اضيع في وقت، عمال اضيع في وقت، انت فاهم. واكتشفت ان في ناس اصلا عاملين الفلاش كاردز دي وعاملينها احسن مني، انت فاهم. فايه، عشان ما يعني عشان ما الاقيش ان انا ضيعت وقت، خدت الفلاش كاردز بتاعتهم، ومش كلها بقى، مش قعدت اقراها كلها ولا قعدت اعدي عليها كلها، ما انا في حاجات عارفها، انت فاهم، انت عارف يعني المعلومات بتفرق من شخص للتاني. فعشان اعرف الحاجات اللي انا عايزها، لو مثلا ليتس سي انا بذاكر اتريال فيبريليشن، حلو، انا لقيت معلومه ان هو عنده 80 سنه، تمام، بدل ما اعمل فلاش كارد اقول لا ده الاتريال فيبريليشن مش عارف بيحصل في 80 سنه، واعمله كارد انا ليا، لان انا مش عارف المعلومه دي، صح، اجيب ديك اصلا هم عاملينها، حلو، والسيرش على المعلومه اللي انا مش عارفها، واشغل الكارد ده بس. يا رب تكون فاهم قصدي. لان في حاجه في انكي اسمها سسبند وان سسبند، يعني انت ممكن يبقى عندك ديك فيها 1000 كارد، تمام، مش لازم تقعد تذاكر ال1000 كارد كلهم، انت ممكن تعمل لهم سسبند كلهم وتشغل كارد واحد بس تراجعه، يبقى ده هو اللي بيجي لك بس، انت فاهم. استنى اوريك، بص، مش عارف انت كده شايف صح؟ طيب بص، ادي الديك اهي، تمام، بص في 500 كارد، عشان انا مش عامل يعني 500 نيو كارد، عشان انا عامل الماكسيمم بتاعي 500 كل يوم. طبعا انا ده فكك، انا اصلا مش براجع انكي دلوقتي، انا مش مشغل انكي، انا مش بعمل 500 في اليوم اكيد تمام، بس انا بوريك الديك دي اكبر ديك موجوده، تمام، دي فيها ستيب 1 و2 ومش عارف ونوت تايبس وبتاع. فاروح انا اعمل ايه بقى؟ دلوقتي انا بذاكر اتريال فيبريليشن، تمام، وشفت معلومه انا مش عارفها، وعايز المعلومه دي تفضل تجي لي سبيسد اوت، يعني عشان اعمل لها سبيس ريبيتيشن، عشان ما انساهاش معلومه ان الاتريال فيبريليشن بيجي في الاولد ايج، تمام. اروح فاتح البراوز ده، عامل براوز، تمام، واعمل سيرش على اتريال فيبريليشن، اتريال فيبريليشن اولد ايج مثلا، مش عارف هلاقيها ولا ايه. دي كله نفس الكارد. دي ستيب، دي تقريبا ستيب، ده ستيب 2 ده. ستيب 2. بس انت في الاتريال فيبريليشن لما يكون الايدج 2 بوينت، لما يكون الايدج اكتر من 75 بتاخد 2 بوينتس. ما علينا. المهم ليتس سي ان ده الكارد اللي انا لقيته، تمام، وده اللي انا عايز اشغله. خلاص انا عامل للديك كلها، انا حرفيا عامل الديك كلها سسبند، يعني موقفها. ازاي تعمل لها سسبند كده؟ تمام، توجل سسبند كده انا وقفتها. بص لونها اصفر، لونها اصفر دي يعني مش هتجيلي خلاص، يعني موجوده كده ايه على الرف، فاهم قصدي؟ اروح انا اعمل كده تاني واعمل توجل ان سسبند، او لا سوري معلش، انا دلوقتي ايه عامل سسبند لكله. الكارد ده بس اللي انا عايزه يجيلي، هعمل له كده بس توجل سسبند بس. يا رب تكون فهمت قصدي. طيب تمام. لو مش فاهم قول لي، انا ممكن اعيد الكلام عادي. بس انا عايز احس ان انت استفدت، بس ان انت يعني الاسئله بتاعتك اترد عليها. ولو عندك طبعا اي اسئله تانية انا قاعد كده كده قاعد، يعني ممكن تروح وتيجي براحتك. تمام. وزي ما قلت لك ابقى بص على على الفيديو اللي انا قلته لك ده، شوف الحته بس. انا عارف انه فيديو طويل ورخم انا بصراحه حاولت اقلله على قد ما اقدر، بس الفيديو كله يعني مفيد، فاهم؟ بس يا رب الناس تفهم. شوف بس الحته بتاعت how to approach usmle questions، تمام، هتستفاد منها قوي، حلو قوي. بفهمك ازاي تقرا السؤال وازاي انا حاليا موقف بسبب الفاينل، هخلص في 11. لو بدأت من 11 هقدر امتحن في 7 ولا هيبقى صعب؟ يعني سنة. انت حليت اي ام بي مي ولا لا؟ طبعا ينفع طبعا. لو انت بدأت في 11 وعايز 7 يا ابني كتير، حلو قوي، طبعا تقدر. انا اخدت قد ايه؟ انا اخدت 4 شهور تقريبا. ف يعني تقريبا 4 شهور ديديكيتد. كان كتير، انت فاهم. بس انا طبعا انا جهزت بورز اند بيوند، يعني بقالي فتره بجهز بورز اند بيوند واسئله ومش عارف ايه. ف... فلا انا بقالي فتره. لا بص، يبقى لازم تحل ام بي مي، لازم تحل ام بي مي وتعرف انت سكورك كام وقول لي. تمام، ابعت لي على الانستجرام، على الفيسبوك، هرد عليك. انا خلاص عرفتك. على حسب الام بي مي هنحدد انت فين دلوقتي. وخلي بالك اول ام بي مي هتسقط فيه، انا بقول لك اهو. ده طبيعي خالص يعني، لان الامتحان طويل 5 ساعات ومش عارف، ومختلف شويه عن البلوكس العاديه، بيبقى 50 سؤال تقريبا. ف فبيبقى مختلف يعني، فاهم قصدي؟ بس فاسقط فيه. انا اول واحد سقطت، يعني مش عارف سقطت فيه وانا نجحت بالعافيه. تقريبا سقطت فيه، كنت جايب 100 و 100 وحاجه و80 باين. النجاح من 196. وش سقطت فيه تقريبا. مع اني وانا بحل كنت حاسس ان انا واثق بتاع ان انا هنجح في الامتحان يعني. وعليكم السلام brother. Do you speak English or Arabic? Sorry about the chat. I think the chat is a little, it has a little bit of delay, so if you want to ask a question in English, that's fine. You can go ahead. الفيرست ايد وبعدين احل ام بي مي. بص يعني مفيش حاجه اسمها اخلص حاجه واحل ام بي مي، سيبك من الميث دي. تمام؟ انت قلت لك انت العلم في الراس مش في الكراس، انت فاهم؟ انت ممكن تقعد تعدي على يعني الاسئله كلها، سوري الكتاب كله، وتلاقي نفسك برضه مش عارف تحل. فسيبك من الكتاب خالص وخش على الام بي مي على طول. انا دي نصيحه مني من اخوك يعني. ما تاجلش الام بي مي عشان انت خايف تحله ولا عشان انت حاسس ان انت مش جاهز او الكلام ده. خلاص. Oh, okay, bro. I can speak English. You can ask me any question in English and I will reply, you know? Go ahead. Because our brother here, Hamid, is an Arab, so we speak in Arabic. That's, yeah. Most of the audience here speaks Arabic, so. The chat has a little bit of delay, so when you send the chat, thanks so much, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love you too. Hopefully I keep making content that you like. That's really an honor. Thank you so much. And if you have any question, of course, like go ahead. Like I really like to help. Thank you again. ان شاء الله برو. sure. انت لسه موجود يا حامد؟ Since there are some people who are speaking English here, non-Arabs, who cannot understand English, sorry, Arabic, I think I have to speak in English. So anyway, Hamid, you gotta just go ahead, man, and start doing the MBME right away, because it's what you're doing right now and saying, you know, I have to first you know, finish the first aid. You're just procrastinating. You know, trust me, like I was there. Just start doing the MBME and maybe you'll pass, man. Maybe you're really prepared, you know what I mean? ممكن ممكن ما تشتريش you don't have to buy UWorld. You can just answer the offline UWorld and then do the online. Or you know what? I haven't done the online UWorld. Yeah. I haven't bought UWorld ever. I've just done the offline ones, and then I bought Amboss because it was much cheaper. It was like $84 for 2 months or something. لو عايز توفر فلوس, if you want to save money, you can just not do the online. That's fine. If you are passing the MBMEs, that's the most important thing. Forget about finishing, you know, offline, online. The MBMEs are the measure here. It's the measurement. It's the assessment, the true assessment. Okay, what school are you in? Like, what medical school are you in? Okay, so if you have weak basics, I suggest watching my video about the how to build your foundation for step one, and that will give you like the proper way of how to approach medicine in general. So if you want to get started with USMLE, just go ahead and get some questions, some USMLE questions, and take a look at them. Let's say you're doing cardiology in your medical school now. Okay, get some USMLE cardiology questions and start doing them right away, and see how do you feel about them. Do you feel like they're hard, they're easy, stuff like that. That's the best strategy to begin with in order to like get into step one. So first of all, like, do what you are doing right now. If you're doing cardiology, if you're doing whatever the subject it is, get questions for them and start testing yourself. See if depending on your medical school. I don't know what medical school you are in. Let's say I don't know, you can answer me here. Tell me about yourself so that I can help you better. Let's say you're in X medical school and you have really a good foundation, like they teach you well in medical school. You will answer questions in the USMLE very easily. So if that's the case, then that's fine. Okay, you might say that my basics are not that much good. You can watch my video for that. It will really help you. If you like, maybe you feel that your basics are weak, but you're not. Like, you're actually a good medical student. So you just have to go ahead and answer questions in order to learn that. You know what I mean? سمعت من الناس اللي امتحنت في شهر 7 و8 اللي فاتوا دول انهم كانوا true. That's actually true. الbehavior science انا جالي بتاع مثلا الاسئله بتاع close to 15 questions behavioral science. انت فاهم؟ لا، في كتير. انا جالي ethics كتير قوي في الامتحان دي حقيقة. انا دخلت في الامتحان شهر 4 اللي فات، الأربعة اللي فات. فلا I can't believe ان يسترسوا على الbehavioral science جامد. انت فاهم؟ انت عارف انا عملت ايه عشان ابقى جامد قوي في الاثكس؟ انا فعلا كنت جامد وانا داخل الامتحان، كنت جامد في الاثكس. خلصت امبوس اثكس كل الاسئله، وركزت كويس قوي في الكيسز والكيس سيناريوز ومش عارف ايه، وابتديت افهم. انت فاهم؟ Okay, Shiraz. Yeah, brother, I started offline New World. I'm really enjoying it, though having weak basics, but it's understandable and I'm enjoying it. That's amazing. Okay, that's awesome. You can just go ahead and finish U World depending on what you're doing in your medical school. So as you said, you are in third year, right? You're in mid of third year. That means like you already have stuff that you need to do, right? You already have you might be taking cardiology now. I don't know, what are you taking now? If you're taking cardiology or pharmacology, whatever it is, just do this in your medical school in order not to screw up your grades in med school, and then add questions on top of them. So test yourself using USMLE step 1 questions. Okay? And that's awesome, man. I love Pakistan, and they have really good medical schools in Russia as well. I mean, not as good. I know that you have to do a lot of self-studying there. Like, I have friends in Russia, and they told me, they all the time tell me that you have to self-study. But that's the case most of the time in medical schools outside the US. ربنا معاك يا برو، وإن شاء الله تقفل. وزي ما قلت لك، أنا عايز أساعدك في أكتر من كده، وهدخلك ممكن في البروجرام بتاعي لو أنت عايز طبعا، وده فور فري. أنا يعني مش هتدفع أي حاجة خالص. وهقول لك ازاي تذاكر ومش عارف ايه. فلو انت عايز ابقى فخور طبعا. باي باي، ربنا معاك، وان شاء الله يعني تنجح في الامتحان. ان شاء الله يا برو، ربنا معاك. Are you still there, Shiraz? انا داخل تانية، ازاي اقدر اطور من الانجليش ولو هذاكر يو اس ام اذاكر كل موديول مع الكليه؟ ريسبكت واحد بيفهم. بص، الانجليش بتاعك ان انت تطوره، ان انت تحاول تبراكتس. لو انت زي ما قلت لك، انا دايما يعني الفلسفي بتاعي، لو عايز تتعلم اي حاجه اعملها. لو انت عايز تتعلم ازاي تتكلم انجليش، اتكلم انجليش. لو عايز تتعلم ازاي تبقى كويس، تبقى يعني شاطر في الانجليش، ان انت تفهم الكلام وكده. اي كلمه فوكابيلاري، بص، اي كلمه انت مش فاهمها لازم تبص على معناها، وتحاول تتخيل كويس معناها وتترجمها، وتبص في الادجكتيفز والفيربز ومش عارف ايه وبتاع، وتفهم كويس قوي، وتحاول تتخيلها بدماغك. انت فاهم يعني؟ زي ما قلت لك قبل كده او في الفيديو اللي فات، اللي هو انت تفاحه، تمام؟ انت عارف يعني ايه تفاحه كويس قوي، نفس التفاحه دي. لو ناون تبقى عارف بالظبط ايه الكلام. لو ادجكتيف حاول توصف حاجه، حاول، وهكذا. لو هتذاكر يو اس ام ال طبعا ذاكر كل موديول مع الكليه، بس مش تذاكر بقى، يعني مش عايزك بقى تذاكر، انت كده كده بتذاكر في الكليه بتاعتك. حل اسئله. انت دلوقتي بتذاكر كارديولوجي، حل اسئله كارديولوجي. انت بتذاكر فارماكولوجي، حل اسئله فارماكولوجي. حل، تمام؟ انت كده كده بتذاكر في الكليه، استخدم المعلومات اللي انت بتذاكرها في الكليه وحل ايه؟ اسئله يو اس ام ال. Yes, brother, you are absolutely right. It's mostly self-study here, but I just want to know if you tell me a good strategy to prepare fully in 1.5 years, just in a short summary. Okay, listen to me. There are some rules here that you need to follow, okay? The first thing is that you need to go, MBMEs are the assessment that you need, okay? If you want to know where do I stand, like what is my level in USMLE, like preparedness, I don't know how to say it. In USMLE level, يعني أنا where am I in USMLE preparation? Okay, this is the first step. So you have to do an MBME and to know where do you stand, okay? Then doing questions. Do a lot of questions, like do as much questions as you can possibly do, okay? And this will prepare you. And of course, the questions, you have to do them timed and random. Not, you don't have to finish cardiology first, or you have to do them timed and random, okay? So let's say there is, I made some videos, like you can watch them. How to start USMLE preparation. There's a video, I've made that. It's how to start USMLE preparation. You can watch that video. I've made a good proposal there. Secondly, there is how to pass the USMLE in 90 days. You can watch that video as well, okay, to see like a general thing. But in order for you not to forget, just remember questions. In the exam, in the USMLE exam, what you're gonna do is basically you're gonna answer questions, okay? That's what you're gonna do. So you need to answer questions in your home, or in like before the exam, in order to be able to answer questions in the exam. Forget about studying and that stuff. Like, try to answer questions. And in the last video, I've made like a chapter. The video is divided into chapters. One of the chapters is how to approach a USMLE question. And go take a look on how do I approach a USMLE question, and really dig in, like really understand what the question is asking. And yeah, that's it. Bro, if you want, Okay, so I was doing a mentorship program. It's for free, absolutely for free, because of my because of the 1,000 subscribers. So you can join me. I'm gonna release a video next, like today. I'm gonna release a video for you guys to apply. Just like sign up, and I'll take you, Shiraz. Okay, and I'll teach you like how to study, how to prepare for USMLE, literally everything you need to know in order to pass the exam. Okay, all that for free, of course. You can sign up. I'll put a link in the next video, so make sure you sign up, and I'll take you right away. And the same for med student right here. I don't know what's your name, man. Okay, bro. If you have any, do you have any other questions? Like, go ahead. I'm gonna be there. Um, and good luck in Russia. How's Russia? I don't know. There is a lot of delay here regarding the chat. I don't know what I should do in order to like improve the internet. I can try and. Sure, bro. Good luck. Like, absolutely. I'm so happy that you like we talked today, and good luck in Russia and in your studies, man. Yeah, Russia is good. Yeah. Sorry, the chat again. The chat is comes late. I know you said that a long time. So yeah, Yusuf Tanas, the number one world USMLE step one. Yeah, I know. I will have him soon in a live stream, study live stream, so you can ask him questions if you want. I will have him on Discord, so you can ask him questions. He'll be like happy to answer. He's a very nice person. I'll meet you in the next video, inshallah. Going to class because I'm in university right now. It's absolutely superb to have chat with you in person. It's really amazing. Thank you so much, my man. Good luck in your school and concentrate on your lecture. It's really my honor to talk with you, man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my bro. Bless you as well, man. Thank you so much. And don't forget the sign up. Sign up for my mentorship. I'll be so happy to help you like pass the usmle for free, completely for free. Okay, it's just because of the the milestone I hit. Thank you again. Allah Hafiz, my bro. Thank you so much, my man. May Allah bless you, inshallah. Could I finish a section in BNB and do your world for that section afterwards? Yeah, definitely you can do that. Yeah, that's what I've done. But that's in the beginning. If you are in the beginning of your study period, you can do that. But if you're on late study period, and your exam is in 2 months or 3 months, I suggest doing random questions, okay, and doing BNB in the things that you're weak at. I hope that answers your question. Step 1 is switching to pass fail. How long do you think we should spend for studying step 1 in general? That's a good question. Well, it depends. So I think the proper time frame, it depends on you. Okay, so during your preparation, you should be able to do 40 questions to 80 questions a day in your dedicated period. And then, are you an IMG? If you are an IMG, okay, that's a different story. Okay, so you should start right away doing questions and then assessing yourself with MBMEs. And depending on the MBMEs, okay, let's say you're passing right now, like you're above the passing score by 20, 30 points. That's it. That's how long you need, right? Your goal now is to pass, just to pass. In order for you to pass like with a good margin, you know, now when you buy the MBMEs, if you buy one of the MBMEs, they tell you the probability that you're gonna succeed or that you're gonna pass. So a month before my exam, I took an MBME and they told me that the probability that I'm gonna pass is 99%. So I was assured that's it. That's what you need. If you're doing an MBME now and you're getting 99% success or pass, bro, that's it. Go ahead and take your exam. Finish that bitch, you know? Because step 2 is the most important now. So just pass it right away. Keep doing questions and assess yourself with an MBME at the end of the week, and you will see yourself progressing. And if you're above the passing score by 20-30 points, here you go. You know what I mean? So there is no like specific timing. Some people have very strong foundation and they've just taken the US the MBME and they pass right away. So that's easy. I'm gonna tell him, take the test, right? So it depends on like case to case basis. That's all. Thank you. Thank you so much, my man. I really appreciate it. It's because of you guys. Thank you so much. And good luck in your exam. I'm just gonna create. I have Discord, but I don't have a group. Like, you mean community? That's the plan. My plan was to make a USMLE community, and in general, people who want to practice in the United States. So you can just add me on Discord, and I'm gonna add you whenever I make the community. You'll find the link in the description of one of the videos. In every single video, you're gonna find the link. I think it's CSO number something. You can just check it. And by the way, the community will have like top scorers like Yusuf Tanas. He's like 277 USMLE step 1. He took the exam before it became pass fail, so he's like pretty solid test taker. Every day, bro, and keep doing the great work. Your videos are really helpful and motivating us. I'm GLI. I'll try to keep like making videos as much as I can. I'm trying to improve the content as well. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm really glad that it helps you. Good luck in your exam and studies. Okay, I'm gonna take a break. I'll make some coffee and go wash my face and stuff like that, and come back. Okay. Okay, obviously there's no one there, so I'm gonna watch a video, which is a very cool video. It's how to become more, how to step up your brain, something like that. It's a very cool video for one of the doctors in America. He's talking about how to become more smarter or something like that. I'm gonna watch this.
So this video is going to be a little bit controversial. Not because I want it to be controversial, but it just is. If you're really into active recall and spaced repetition, and if those are the techniques that you think work the best, then you're probably wrong. Let me explain why. For those of you that don't know, I'm Dr. Justin Sung. I'm a medical doctor, but I'm also, more importantly, a learning coach. It's what I do full-time. I work with students, teaching them evidence-based studying and time management skills. Before I tell you why active recall and spaced repetition doesn't really work, let me tell you a really quick story about how I came to discover this. Okay, so rewind like 10 years ago and I'm trying to enter into medical school. I'm still in high school right now and I'm doing relatively okay. I'm getting a high grade band, I'm getting some scholarships. I'm doing reasonably well. You know, people used to look at me as a smart kid. I go into university. During this year, I just studied and studied and studied, like non-stop. That's all I did. And in this first year of uni, this is where I really started getting into active recall and spaced repetition. It was all the hype, what still is all the hype. I had thousands of flashcards and I would study literally every day, all day. And when I say all day, I was only getting like 2 or 3 hours of sleep every night. It was very, very bad. And I did that every single day, every single weekend, for about 9 to 10 consecutive months. It was pretty brutal. I was incredibly sleep deprived, obviously. I was hallucinating even. I remember one time where I had been awake for I think I was awake for like 77 hours and I was probably studying like 70 of those hours. I would study when I was eating, I would study while I was brushing my teeth, I would study in the shower. My entire day was just filled with studying. Obviously, I was a little bit obsessed. And I did end up getting very, very good grades, and I ended up getting into medical school. So what happened when I entered into medical school? Well, the thing is that when you enter into medical school, right? So before getting in, I was studying about this much, okay? That year, I essentially memorized this whole textbook, and probably a little bit more for the other subjects as well. But when I got into medical school, I realized that there was a lot more that I needed to learn. And in fact, the content was about double. I needed to study about double. So for those of you that are pretty good at maths, you'll know that you can't study more than, like if you're studying 20 hours a day, you can't study 40 hours a day, no matter how ling you are. And that was obviously a problem because I just entered into medical school and I didn't want to fail. So I had to figure out a better way to study. So that's when I started looking into effective study techniques. And what really got me was that I was spending a lot of time doing my flashcards and spaced repetition and active recall and all of that sort of stuff. And it wasn't really getting the type of results that I wanted. There were guys in my class who I never saw studying, and they would consistently outperform me in my tests and exams, and it was pretty frustrating. So I looked into the research and I started experimenting with different ways that I could study, and I did this like a crazy person. Like, my life depended on it, because my livelihood did. I didn't want to spend my whole life just sitting in a library wasting away. And everything I learned, I taught to other students. By the time I'd finished my third year of uni, I'd already gotten a teaching certificate. So I'd learned a lot more about the theory behind learning and how that works. And that allowed me to learn even more deeply. Okay, fast forward a few years, I'd actually built an entire business around teaching students. And one of the things I learned while I was teaching other students was that there are some techniques that will work as long as you're already pretty good at studying. If you're not someone that is like very good at what's called deep processing, essentially someone that can just pick up a new concept and learn it really, really quickly to begin with, then a lot of the techniques don't actually work, or it's not enough. And so for me, as essentially a learning professional, teaching others and getting paid to help them learn to learn, I had to figure out a way to help students to do well, even if they weren't already, like a genius. And this is kind of where the story begins, because it's been 10 years and I've learned a lot. So hear me out on this. So the first thing that I want to say is that I know that what I'm going to say today goes in the face of maybe everything that you've heard from your friends or your teachers or your parents or other people on YouTube. I know, and I get it. When I teach you what I've learned, it's going to make sense to you as well, okay? But there is a lot to cover. There's a lot of stuff I'm going to go through that you've probably never heard before. So, before we understand why active recall and spaced repetition doesn't work as well as people hype it up to, we first need to understand a little bit about how learning actually works in the first place. Because without knowing that, we're not going to understand where it works and then where it fails. And that's going to be really important for you to look at your own studying system and actually start tweaking it. If you don't know why it works in the first place, every time you have an issue, you're not going to know how to problem solve it. And I think that's very important to know. So the first thing I want to point out is that studying is not the same thing as learning. And this may be something that is really obvious to you, but I found that a lot of students have not ever thought about this, is the fact that studying is actually this process that we are doing physically, right? It could be the writing of notes when we're, in class or revising material. It could be us watching a video about something. Right now, you might be studying this video as you're listening. This is the stuff we do out in the physical world. And the purpose of doing this is so that we can get learning occurring. So the purpose of studying is to produce learning, and learning is actually the cognitive process that occurs. And this is essentially when information is connected into our brain, and we can say that we have learned successfully if that knowledge is retained, and preferably we are actually able to use it and apply this knowledge. So learning and studying are two separate things. So if you were to take a textbook and then you were to smash your face into the textbook, you would not say that that is either studying or learning. But if you were to smash your face into the textbook enough times, you will, at the very least, have learned the name of the title of the textbook as it comes into your face repeatedly. That's not the best wording that I could have used for that. As it impacts your face repeatedly. And so in this example, we have actually learned something. So if your friend were to say, hey, how are you going to study for that test? And you say, just the usual, slamming the textbook into my face, then that would be your studying technique, I guess. Now, that's an extreme example. Well, what about if you were to open up the textbook and then you were to touch the pages? What if you were to flick the pages? What if you were to look at the pages while you were flicking them? What if you were to read the words on the pages? What if you were to read slowly? What if you were to then read it and then write something? Do you see how changing different things about the activity changes the amount of learning that it engages? So it shows that the learning process is something that is activated by the studying process, and not all studying processes activate the same amount of learning. So that means that you can potentially spend 10 hours studying using one technique and then get only 1 hour of learning if your technique is only, let's say, 10% efficient. Now, in reality, it's really hard to put these exact percentage numbers on it because it's just really hard to measure, but you get the gist. Some techniques are really efficient. You can get a lot of learning in your brain done using them. Some techniques are less efficient. And broadly speaking, we call the techniques that are more effective at learning active learning techniques. And there is a huge range of active learning techniques that we can use while we're studying. So what is it that is actually happening in our brain when we say that this learning thing is encoding? Okay, so let me give you a very quick dive into how our memory actually works. There's this one model for our memory that is called the multi-store model of memory. And this can get pretty complicated, but long story short, it says that there are different places in our memory where the information goes. Number one, when we take in information, it comes in as sensory information. So this is the type of stuff that we might be seeing with our eyes or listening with our ears. Right now, you are receiving sensory information. And this goes into a part of our brain which is called the sensory memory. So that's relatively straightforward. Now, information from your sensory memory is forgotten very, very quickly. Because if you imagine holding on to every piece of information that you are bombarded with on a daily basis and remembering all of that, your brain would just explode. Imagine remembering every single sensation that is on your skin, every license plate you see as you're walking. That would be incredibly overwhelming, but more importantly, it's very energy inefficient. If we don't need that information, it's not going to keep it. In fact, it's a life or death situation from your body's point of view. Your brain consumes already at rest around 20% of your resting energy caloric intake per day. So what that means is that if it's unnecessarily being super active, holding on to irrelevant information, you will literally die. So the point is that your brain is really, really efficient at forgetting anything that is not relevant and not necessary. What happens after this is that if you intend to keep this information, if you want to remember it for longer, then it shunts this information into something that is called the working memory. Now, this is also sometimes called the short-term memory, but I like calling it the working memory because it also talks about one of its other functions, which is that when you have information that's in your long-term memory and you want to use it again, it has to go through the working memory first. So here's how this works. Some of this information that initially came in through sensory pathways goes into our working memory, and then from our working memory goes into our long-term memory here. And this is a process that we call encoding. Now, when we want to use this information, we have to retrieve it from our long-term memory, and this is a process that's called retrieval. So that means that every time you are answering a test question or an exam paper, or someone asks you a question about anything, what we're trying to do is we're trying to collect it from our long-term memory, call it forth into our working memory, and that's where we can actually answer or manipulate the information or do something with it. So I like thinking about the working memory almost like a hotel lobby. You can stay there for a short period of time, but you're going to get kicked out if you don't have a room in the hotel. But to get in and out of this building, you need to pass through the lobby no matter what. So the working memory is where you're going to be spending a lot of your time when you're manipulating the information, but it's not a good place to hold on to it.
The working memory is deficient in people with ADHD. They have very bad working memories, so they can be reading something and they cannot remember that they're reading that thing, which is annoying.
Because the working memory will also forget information relatively quickly in the span of sort of seconds to minutes. Now, your long-term memory is a little bit different. Your long-term memory will forget things as well, but it will forget things much more slowly. It will forget things in the span of hours to even months. And it depends on how strongly it was encoded in this process here. And that is very, very complicated. I'm not going to be able to get into it. And we also don't fully know exactly all the things that involves. But we do know a few things due to extensive research in this field, and one of those things is that encoding and retrieval are both very, very important. You can't just encode because then your brain doesn't know how to retrieve it properly to actually answer the questions, but also you can't retrieve what you don't encode. You can't pour from an empty bucket. If you don't fill it in the first place, or if your bucket has holes, then when you need to pour stuff out of it, nothing's going to come out. So they're two sides of the same coin. And students often don't think much about the encoding process, and that's because of another thing that we know about encoding, which is the fact that encoding uses a lot of what we call cognitive load. And cognitive load is, in short, the brain power necessary to do the encoding process. Encoding does not happen without sufficient cognitive load. Now, cognitive load is also something that is actually pretty complicated, and a lot of places teach it wrong. I've even advised at schools where their own school curriculum taught cognitive load incorrectly. But again, the long story short here is that your brain has a certain amount of load that it can kind of tolerate. And this is something that can actually be trained. So if you aren't able to tolerate a lot of this brain power and a lot of this load, then you can actually train that, which I will talk about in other videos. But essentially what happens is that when the load increases, your learning actually increases as well, up to a certain point. So what happens is, if this red line is talking about the amount of cognitive load that you've got on your brain, and then this green line is talking about the amount of learning that's occurring, aka the amount of encoding that is occurring, then what we see is that the amount of learning is really low at low levels of cognitive load. And it
Ben, sorry, I wasn't aware that you sent a message. I've been using the active recall and spatial repetition for the first year. It was such a wonderful method, especially for the pathology. Is there any problem in the method? Well, you gotta watch the video. It's a long video, but long story short is that the problem with active recall is that you sometimes bypass the process of learning the material correctly. So it's instead of really understanding stuff, when it's repeated a lot of times in front of you, it turns into just memorizing stuff. You know what I mean? So for example, you instead of learning like proper physiology, you just memorize physiology because you keep repeating that instead of taking time to break things down and really understanding stuff. So yeah, spaced repetition is not like the best. Well, it has to be in a certain way, of course. So yeah. So for example, let's say you're studying cardiovascular physiology. You cannot just keep repeating cardiovascular physiology without really breaking it down. You know what I mean? So if you keep repeating stuff over and over again, it will turn, instead of understanding it, you're just memorizing it. So that's the whole problem with spaced repetition and active recall. And that's what he's talking about in this video. He's not like demonizing the active recall or spaced repetition stuff. Well, the active recall is better than spaced repetition, but he's just trying to clickbait you in the video. That's I think, because I watched this video before. He's saying a lot of good stuff, but not a lot. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oops.
well, up to a certain point. So what happens is, if this red line is talking about the amount of cognitive load that you've got on your brain, and then this green line is talking about the amount of learning that's occurring, aka the amount of encoding that is occurring. Then what we see is that the amount of learning is really low at low levels of cognitive load, and it goes up as the load goes up to a certain extent. Once it reaches that threshold, it actually starts to plateau and go down. So if we've got too much load, then we're overwhelmed and we're not learning effectively. But if we don't have enough, we're actually just fundamentally not encoding it at all. And all of the techniques that result in very low cognitive load, and therefore very low encoding, and therefore very low learning, and therefore making you forget the same thing that you studied 20 times very, very quickly, these are all called passive learning. And the thing is that this is something that happens in your brain. You can use the same technique, such as reading a book, but if you're thinking about it differently, you could get a lot of learning out of it, or you might be completely passive. So it's hard to tell based on just looking at someone studying or seeing what technique they're using, how much cognitive load is actually going on inside their brain. And research is strongly supportive that the relationship between cognitive load and encoding and how good your memory and retention is very strongly associated with the amount of load. So the more load, the better, to a certain point. So what does this cognitive load actually feel like? When you're studying, cognitive load feels confusing. It feels like you're really trying to figure this out. You might have a little bit of cognitive load right now, thinking, what is he talking about? Where is this going? How does that fit in? How do I...
That's exactly what I was talking about in the last video, when I said you actually have to think about stuff, like dig in exactly what you're reading in order to understand it better and to decode it, as he said, like encode it better in your memory and your brain. So that's what he's trying to talk about when he said cognitive load. This is the cognitive load he's talking about.
Apply that to my life. How is that similar or different to what else I know? These questions, this confusion, this is cognitive load, and this is a sign that your brain is engaging high efficiency learning pathways, which means that if you're studying and this isn't happening in your brain, you're not getting that cognitive load. And another thing that we know is that when this is happening in your brain, it's directly opposed to feeling bored or drowsy. So if you've ever been studying and you just find it so boring and tedious and you're getting sleepy, and every time you start studying you fall asleep, that's what used to happen to me all the time. In fact, I probably got more sleep while I just took naps while I was studying than I did in my bed. Well, if that's happening, then that is a sign that your studying technique is actually not very efficient, because it means that you're not using the right types of pathways in your brain. Because if you were, you actually wouldn't feel that. And there is studies that's done on the electrical activity of the brain that shows the different waves. And so right here, this is one of the main reasons why techniques about encoding and this stuff is not really talked about, and you may have never heard of this before, is because of the fact that learning correct encoding is difficult. It's not just difficult in that there are a lot of steps and there's a very specific pathway to allow you to do correct encoding. In my course where I work with students,
Did you ask any questions? Yeah.
Ultimately, it takes months to build up someone's encoding to a very, very significant degree. But it is, in essence, forcing yourself to become smarter. When your encoding goes up, you are faster at studying, you can just understand concepts faster, you can just hold on to the information for longer, you don't need to revise it all the time, your confidence goes up, and you just start enjoying the studying process a lot more. But that takes a lot of effort, and you have to be very willing and ready to accept the discomfort that comes with this encoding process. And in fact, this whole idea that it's difficult and it's uncomfortable, this is actually called desirable difficulty. And not many students are willing to go through that discomfort in order to learn the skills. Much like how if you were to go to the gym, you're only getting an effective workout if your muscles are feeling pretty tired. Same thing here is that your brain is only really being used effectively if it has that level of discomfort and cognitive load. So on the flip side, that actually means that retrieval techniques are easier to learn. And this is where active recall and spaced repetition come in. They're very easy techniques to learn. Pretty much anyone can pick it up. It doesn't have any real learning curve. You can hear about it and then 10-15 minutes later, pretty much just do it straight away. And there is going to be a benefit. So we're getting there. We're going to understand now why it doesn't really work beyond a certain point. Because the reason active recall and spaced repetition works in the first place is by adjusting and working on this forgetting curve. Now, the forgetting curve is a very popular, well-known concept, and it basically says that the first time that you learn something, if this is time on the x-axis here, and this is the amount of knowledge that you have in your head stored, able to be recalled on the y-axis, the first time you learn something, you will actually forget this information relatively quickly. Now, if you were to then revise this information again, let's say a few hours later, then you would then forget it a little bit more slowly. And so every time you repeat this information, you're going to forget it slower and slower and slower until this curve starts plateauing. So you can see that the slope of this here is, pretty steep, whereas over here it's not so steep, which indicates that we're forgetting information a lot slower over here than over here, where we're forgetting a lot of information very quickly. Now, research will say that after 1 week of learning a fact without doing any other type of retrieval in between, you can actually forget around 60% of this information, 50 to 60% of it. So that effectively means that half of all the studying that you did completely just went to waste after just 1 week. And to be honest, a lot of students are not revising stuff at the end of every week to begin with either. So it's actually in reality going to be a lot more of an issue than this, because you essentially just study everything throughout the year, and then before your exams, it's like you're just studying it from fresh. You've forgotten everything. And I'm sure some of you can relate to that. So what active recall and spaced repetition is doing is it's actually moving you along this forgetting curve. So instead of being on this line where the rate of decay, and that is the technical word for this, the rate of decay is very, very quick, we're getting to this slope here. So we are moving and progressing.
Okay, I'll finish half the video. The video is very long. I mean, it's boring, honestly. Okay, I think we're done with that. Okay, guys, I have an exam upcoming, or and there's nobody's watching right now. I think there's a little bit of delay, so I don't really know who's watching and who's not. So I'll be studying, and right here, if you need anything, like if you have any question, just hit me in the chat, and I'll be able to answer it. I'll be here for like half an hour, so yeah. I'll be preparing for the course today. I have a course with some of the students I teach. They sent me some of the questions, like some usmle step 1 questions, and I will be preparing them in order to teach them, like how to approach questions and stuff like that. So okay, guys. Okay, I'm going to end the live stream here because obviously there is no one coming. So thanks for those who participated in the stream, and thanks again. Yep. See you guys.